one thing which is very different to anything that we know of from before. COVID meant it does not matter how powerful, how strong you are, it can catch anyone. And it did not matter if you're a leader of a country or if you are the richest business person or you're a very poor person. It was, therefore everyone was scared. So once people are scared, when they have the fear, then how do you take out that fear to get them back into your hotels? So I think that was the whole philosophy on the E of the reset.
I think it's interesting, in your normal humble way of speaking about, your own participation and leadership in these initiatives. It might be true to say that, of course, we've seen an incredible leap in terms of digitization of businesses, whether it's selling online, whether it's, transforming what they do on the inside of their business. But, being very aware of what you have done, I found learning about the initiatives, understanding the initiatives to be truly a great leap. And it's quite clear to me that, you, together with many of your other businesses, as you quite rightly point out, that this has given you a leap into the future. That may be one of the benefits of COVID, if I can use that phrase, because there are too few benefits, but certainly in terms of transformative digital initiatives, I think it has certainly forced us to take giant steps in that way. And of course, today is an example, of what we've been able to do. And later today, I'm teaching an MBA class and I'm doing it all through Zoom. So digitization everywhere. I want to mention something because of what you just spoke about in terms of the assistance you've tried to give your employees, of how you look after all of your stakeholders, how you recognize at Taj or Indian Hotel Company, how important your employees are, that you have been recognized by Gallup for the 8th time as the winner of the Gallup Great Place to Work. Again, just another great accolade. That of course, is not easily earned, and you continue to do so well every single year with us. I'm going to take us out of this context just a little bit to something that you have kept your eye on as much as one can, during this crisis, and it enrobes, I think, your brand in some broader equity, some broader associations that I think are very powerful. Can you speak a little bit about what it means for Taj to operate in an environmentally responsible manner, and any recent initiatives in this regard?
We have been very strong in these initiatives. I think as a group, the Tata Group has identified, and we are a part of that group, is one of the key initiatives and a key trend that is going to have the strongest influence on businesses going forward. So I think working on renewable energy, single-use plastic, we are going to very soon launch green meetings, recycling waste, not only that, water conservation. The water conservation that we did was equal to maybe almost 400 Olympic-sized swimming pools to be filled with water. Total CO2 emissions, and a lot of these initiatives to also work on sustainable cooling initiative with IFC from Washington is something we are working on. And as I said, building zero plastic use hotels. Andaman is one of those that we have now. And also a lot of our hotels are EarthCheck certified. And we have, I think, the maximum number which has the platinum certificate. And if I remember the number right, is around 47 of those. So all in all, that ESG has been, and good governance, sustainability, environmental is like a part of the DNA of not just us, but any of our other group companies too, as we have very clear understanding that those not taking this seriously will go out of business. The The newer generations will just not go there. A lot of companies will not allow business to be done in companies that don't do that. And for us, it was easy because we always followed these kind of practices. As I said, one of the key pillars of the founder's philosophy was always built around the community. So if you're not responsible, if you're not taking care of the environment, if you're not doing sustainable business, if you're not led by good governance, you cannot serve the community. So I think this has worked well for us over 100 years now. So it's a question of how we keep going for the next 100.
You know, that what you've just spoken about, which I know to be part of the way that you operate, it's just built into your operations. It's not an add-on, is entirely consistent with our business teaching at Schulich. For us, it is not share growth, share price growth at any price. It's not profit maximization at any price. The triple bottom line is important, and it's going to be increasingly important. And at some stage, I think that it's going to make a difference to how companies are recognized in the marketplace in a much more direct manner than perhaps we're seeing today. So, your work in this area certainly doesn't sound like crisis management in a pandemic. All of your initiatives, although clearly, warranted and necessary and urgent, the fact that you've continued to go in this area, I think, is testimony to your team and your leadership. I've only got 2 more questions before perhaps, Rontu, we can hand it over to the audience. So any audience members that are with us, you might be pleased to know that you're going to get a chance to ask a question. But there is an area that I talk about a lot in my brand management classes. And that is that there is much evidence today that a market penetration strategy is the key to growth. You can't just loyalty your way to growth. Ultimately, you must focus on market penetration. That is not to say that loyalty is unimportant. It's clearly important. To succeed with the strategy, though, a brand must grow 2 market-based assets: mental and physical availability. Simply explained is how easily the brand comes to mind when someone is ready to buy, and how easy it is for that person to make a purchase. Building mental availability with potential customers is best achieved through broad reach activities, such as advertising on television or digital video, amongst many others. This activity creates potential future demand for the brand. But brands need both brand building and short-term performance marketing, because the latter captures current demand. And clearly, we've been in a state where that is very, very important. My questions are, what has been your focus on these 2 types of communication during the pandemic? And do you foresee any changes in the longer term once we begin to return to happier times?
Wow. This kind of question actually takes you back to your, classroom days, because a lot of these things we do, but there is no, no big studies or research behind it. So let me just answer it in a very practical way. There are communications which, as you said, are during the pandemic, and then I think you called it when we return to a happier and healthier world. And I mentioned growing grass in the desert. So one is, how do you survive in the short term, and how you act when the revival is around the corner. And in this particular pandemic, the revival comes, which came after the first wave between 15th of November till end of February of 21. And then the second wave started coming in Mumbai, and it, had captured India totally as of middle of April. From 90,000 cases, we went to 400,000. So your communication campaign, your tactics to sell, your strategies don't help. You have to capitalize in the short term and still never forget and lose sight of the long term. And I think that's what we did actually quite well. And I can give examples of what we did. First and foremost is communication with your own staff. See, your own associates, your own people, if they are not happy, if you're not communicating with the people who are going to host your customers, who are going to interact with your other stakeholders, then that does not work. So whether it is sending letters to them, having video messaging, going live, town hall meetings, whatever, you have to keep doing that. And not just the CEO, I think the most of the leadership team has to do it. Keep people engaged despite digitally, and turn your workplace even into a classroom, and have regular top management meeting and top leadership team. When I say top management, is the X form of the company or the organization, and leadership is that top 40, and get people from outside to speak to you, because there is nobody who has an answer, as this has never happened before. You can take learnings from each one of those and see what is it that works for you the best. So I think that short-term part is very important, and we executed on that very successfully also. Similarly, short-term campaigns. So immediately after the second wave, and because of what you said, loyalty, which we were not working on for a year and a half, so that the people don't feel neglected, we made a great offer to our loyalty members, calling it, cherishing togetherness, and getting them back, because if your loyal people don't come, others won't come either. So
Right.
I think it was a different usage of loyalty to leverage your loyal customers, stakeholders, to drive the businesses. And when it comes to long term, if you're only short term tactical, it will catch up with you, you'll lose out. So you should never do anything which interferes, spoils, or bothers with the culture of the company and who you are, and make sure that those communications don't become so tactical, or, for the lack of better word, very opportunistic, because they'll help you for a week or a month or 6 weeks. And what after that? Because it was very opportunistic. You just said things which people wanted to listen to. And a lot of times you get the low-hanging fruits and a short-term win. Long-term win will only come if you're honest with people, if you help them grow, but at the same time you're tough with them. And eventually, if you're helping your people grow, they will help you grow and your brand grow. And I think this worked very well for us, is the way we conducted ourselves over 16 months as an ecosystem of almost 30,000 different employees, that helped us both in the short term and the long term communication.
That's very, very helpful, Puneet. I would say to you that, listening to you talk about the 12 campaigns and to provide some details of some of those earlier today, those, to me, it's both brand building and short-term performance marketing are inherent in much of what you spoke about. This idea of building mental availability is about, increasing brand salience. And by the way, the folks who created this terminology, mental and physical availability, are the Ehrenberg Bass Institute out of the University of South Australia. It is a driving force in much of brand building today. I would also say to you that your comment about a different form of loyalty marketing, focusing on customers that have given us their business over the years. I'm pretty certain that if Professor Byron Sharp was here from the Ehrenberg Institute, he'd probably say yes, but you needed to target them also because you had built new products, new digital products, new ways of serving them. And so you needed to build that mental availability with them too, so that they knew that they could come on in, to a very safe environment, or that you could serve them at home. And so, kudos to you and your team. Clearly some excellent examples of both. Okay, last question for you, because I'm sure the audience is very eager to ask their own questions. Finally, as you gaze into the leadership crystal ball, your leadership crystal ball, how do you foresee the operational context for Taj during the next 3 to 5 years? I know this is a very difficult question, given the current COVID context in India. But as you look into the crystal ball, what are you thinking? What are you thinking might happen, the changes, and your most important managerial initiatives?
Yeah, I think we will be rolling out that strategy in the next few weeks. We are already done with it, but I cannot give it out here on this forum. So let me try to tackle it differently. It's not that we haven't done it, we've done it, but we need the approval of our board and everybody else. And it should not be that board members see it on a YouTube. What's
Okay,
happening? So,
absolutely.
so I think the important thing is that just like we switched gears from an aspiration to reset, as we begin to enter and assuming that 70-80% of the pandemic is behind us, and maybe in some places 60, and in some other countries maybe even 80-85, that we have to start preparing ourselves for the next. It's not going to be any more about reset, whether it's an aspiration or something else for the next 3 to 5 years, as you called it. Where I see this going is addition of some other initiatives, which were not there in 17. And digitization is one of those initiatives. It was not that it was not there, but adding businesses which are more built on digitization or brands to our portfolio. An example is our food delivery, where we are not using a third-party provider. We are using our own app. And I think, if I'm not wrong, people in US and Canada can order meals on that app for their parents or anniversary or any festival in India. So it's not, we can't do deliveries out there, but we can deliver to their kith and kin in India. Similarly, we might add one or the other initiative for our homestay business, making it a platform-driven business. And we might add another such digital platform business. So there is a hedge, a natural hedge between the classical business of hospitality, which is capital intensive, which is labor intensive. We read all those things about people stopping turn down, brands stopping turn down service or mini bar in the room. That's not going to really reduce very big cost on the amount you need to build a property and the amount you need to run a hotel. It's not that it's not needed, it's a needed initiative. But more important is, how would you leverage digital with the old, as they call it, an old age kind of model, business model, to take that leap of faith forward. And I think that will be an important part of our strategy. We will not slow down our growth. We are today at 220 hotel portfolio, of which 50 are under development. So I think we should go down to at least 300 hotels in future. We will not be working on the loyalty ourselves, but we would very much want to position ourselves to take advantage of a loyalty initiative, which is being considered at a group level because it brings different businesses together. We will continue to grow margins, and very importantly, although Taj is our backbone, Taj is the crown on the head of Indian hotels, but we have other exciting brands, and maybe they have also a very bright future. It would be time to start consolidating those brands to a very strong position. So a lot of our brands, including Taj, will hit 100 plus, and 100 in Taj is very good because it's a luxury brand. So very few luxury brands have a portfolio of 100 plus hotels across the globe. So we are very pleased with that, but we are very excited about getting to our first 100 homestays, first 100 Ginger branded properties, first 100 Vivanta. So I think all this will go hand in hand. So we would have built that structure, which will, in your words, drive the loyalty instead of building loyalty, which should drive the growth. So, yes. So I think we are very well positioned to take advantage of that. And build our brandscape, which we reimagined, and we went into action, and then the COVID stopped us, and that journey must go on. And as I said, adding a few more brands, and I'm very excited also about flight kitchen business. We are partners there 50-50 with SATS, which runs the Singapore airport. I think they are very very well positioned on technology platform. And I think what this pandemic, as you said, has rightly done is made us rethink a lot on the models we operate in. In a lot of businesses, in our flight kitchen business, in the month of March, we actually did more flights than in the month of March during, when COVID hit. So, because many others unfortunately went out of business. And there is when you start getting scale. So I think there are so many things that are happening in the market. I wish COVID had never happened. On the other hand, when I think, forgetting Indian hotels, forgetting Taj, just think about the industry around the globe. This is a one-time opportunity the industry has had to reset its cost positioning.
Right.
Be it on capital investments, be it on operational excellence, or all the operating variable costs, fixed cost structure. We had a chance to review each of those costs in detail. So as you said it, Professor, going forward, if you're able to retain and maintain those cost structures, you become an industry with much higher margins, and hopefully we end up doing that too. So I think all in all, this is what I see happening in 6 to 8 months from now. At the latest, this will start, because I do believe that 60 to 70% of the bad news is behind us.
Thank you for that wonderful summary in terms of the context. I'm gonna hand over to Rontu, but before I do, I just want to say what a pleasure, what a delight, what an honor it has been to share the stage with you again, this virtual stage. I would say to you, and it may put a smile on your face with what I'm about to say to Rontu, but Rontu, I heard new strategy, which to me meant another chance for a webinar, which if I get invited to participate again, would just delight me more. Over to you, Rontu.
Thanks. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Puneet. So we have lots of questions. So what I'll do is I'll start with one of the chat questions, which has come from our Schulich Advisory Council member, Mr. Nader Godrej, Managing Director of Godrej Industries. And this question is to you, Puneet. His question is, how does Taj envision competing with digital hotel firms like Oyo and Airbnb?
Mr. Godrej, we've had the honor of having him on our board. And I don't actually feel that traditional hotel business in the positioning of Taj has had to compete with the Airbnbs or the Oyos in this category. Airbnb definitely took a very wise decision of capturing on latent demand that was always there. So it did not replace demand to that level in hotels. It just added another dimension to it, and they were very clever to do so. When it comes to Oyo, the Oyo, that product does not come anywhere close to most of our brands today, unless they do something different. Of course, in the space that we have Ginger, there is some form of an overlap, but I do feel that Ginger, with the reimagined Ginger, with the new brand, the brand standards, the logo, what we call the lean luxe model, that Ginger is positioned to do very, very well. And that actually tells me about one more thing which I would like to share with all the people who have been stakeholders of our group, that in whatever we do, in whatever business we are in that market and in that positioning, we will always be that premium player. We will not go for anything and everything that does not fit in, because ultimately, because we're popularly known as the Taj Group, it will hurt our mother brand. So that does not mean there is not a great play available at the Ginger level or in our home delivery in the Cumin or in Ama, our homestay. But we have to always make sure that within those individual segments, we are considered for premium, great service, great product, great people, and served with what we call Tajness. And that was, is, and I think will continue to define us going forward.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Puneet. Now, can I get those 3 or 4 live questions that we have? So can I ask Sharon to come on screen, please, and ask your question to Puneet? Sharon, are you there?
Hello, good morning. I hope you can all hear me.
Yep, go ahead.
Firstly, thank you so much for this opportunity. Having you in our presence is an absolute delight, and this session is nothing short from being insightful. My question to you, sir, is Taj Hotels has been consistently on the top, be it with being rated the world's strongest hotel brand by Brand Finance in 2021, or with its recent push to launch an all-women managed luxury residence, the Taj Wellington Mews in Chennai. While other hotels have been looking at mergers or closures, how has Taj managed to be strategically ahead of the curve in the hotel industry?
Well, Shane, I think as I said before in the discussion with Professor Khonson, especially during pandemic, the Taj has stood out in the way it not only looked after its associates but also the community and the way it served. It was service before self, and that is a key differentiator when it comes to differentiating yourself is how you conduct yourself in the crisis. That's number one. Number two, you should know that certain great organizations like ourselves and the group that we belong to, we don't grow through a very famous word. Now it's being used in English also, the Schadenfreude, which is really coming from German. It's just somehow not a good omen to take advantage of somebody's difficult situation to gain that competitive advantage. So I think we have been on our own journey. We have defined our own rules of the games, and we do it with all the ethics and all the governance, as I said before, with our culture of Tajness, and hopefully that guiding spirit stays with us. I was also introduced to it a little less than 4 years ago, and I tell you, I became a big fan of it without realizing. As I said before, I became a part of it, and I think it's very good. So if you have such a strong culture, and we said culture eats strategy for breakfast, and whatever else that follows, because it's really not the 5,000, 7,000, 8,000 or 10,000 hotels like many others have, which has made us the strongest brand. It is really a combination of everything that I said, and therefore it's important to be guided by that instead of trying to fight on other people's terms. We should compete on our strengths, and our strengths lie in our culture, in our iconic assets, in our heritage, in the belonging to the group.
Thank you, Puneet. Thank you, Sharon. Can I move on quickly to Yash, who's incoming MBA student for the fall? Yash, can you come on camera, please?
Hi, sir. Good evening. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Thank you for this opportunity, sir. And I'm hoping everything's good with you at home as well. So, sir, my question stems from how important do you think is it for a successful chain or a successful group of hotels to incorporate the strategy of having luxurious hotels and budget hotels? Do you think it always works in terms of revenue, in terms of building a good brand, or you can do without it?
It's a very generic question. It's very difficult to make it work in all geographies of the world. But if you're primary business and you're primarily India focused or Indian subcontinent focused, you cannot be just luxury or budget. As you know, we have 1.3 billion people in India, and not everyone is rich and not everyone is poor. There is a middle class, there is a high middle class, there is an upper class, and there is a, the rich class, and then there is the poor part of it. So if your market is, let's say, 50% of the population of India, it's like 550 or 650 million people. Within that may be relevant for you, maybe another 50%, let's say 25% of the total. Of that, then you have to say how much customers are there for luxury, how much are there in the budget, and how much are there in the middle segment. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is the customer journey. A lot of us, especially in our working lives, when we are invited to an event by the company and we are staying in a luxury property is different, but when we have collected all those loyalty points, or when we are going with the family on a family holiday, our needs and wants may be different, our budgets may be different, and we need to trade. So that you don't lose a customer to another brand, it is maybe important to be in that segment too. Finally, I think Professor Khonson mentioned something very important. It is not about today. It is about 5 years or 7 years from now. What do you see as an opportunity? Suppose we were only in the luxury segment and we have, let's say, 70 Taj properties in India. Maybe another 5-7 years, we'll have 10 more. And slowly you start becoming irrelevant because you're not addressing the needs and wants of the population at large, and that too in your own home market. You're in that niche, and that's fine. A company may choose to have that strategy. But as a member of, I would say, a group that addresses the needs and wants of the entire population, from salt to, to trucks, to cars, I think it's very important for us to have the similar philosophy like Tata Motors has, or like Titan has, or others, addressing different segments of the market, and at the same time not forget and have a brand creep as well as a brand overlap, so that one of the brands starts cannibalizing the others. If these are carefully segmented brands, then you're actually better off in a heterogeneous country with such a large population like it. Now, if you're in a country which is like one city only, and your expansion is not going to be that city, let's say Singapore or Hong Kong or something, and your expansion is the world, then maybe it makes sense to be in just one segment. And then the segment that travels across national frontier as brands is typically the luxury segment. So because the luxury traveler is typically your global traveler, then it makes sense only to be in luxury. I mean, that's my humble take on it. I think only time decides what was the right or wrong thing. But as we speak today, this is how I see it.
I would say quite honestly that that completely fits anything I'd be teaching in my class, anything that's leading brand management thinking. So, and I'm just not surprised, Puneet, that would be your gaze into the global ball on such an issue.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Yash. Can I quickly move on to Aniket, please? Please switch on your screen.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Mr. Puneet Chatterwal for his exemplary leadership during the pandemic time. Sir, you are a role model. My question stems from the fact that there is no doubt that the most affected industry due to the pandemic has been tourism and hotel industry, even more than the airlines. In India, the contribution of the tourism towards GDP is 8%. Should the tourism sector be looked as a major contributor towards the GDP and job creation? And how can this be revamped for a sustainable growth and business? Additionally, how can brand Taj play a role in driving this initiative?
Okay, so there are 2-3 figures I'll give you, some data that is important. Pre-pandemic, the contribution to global GDP of tourism was north of 10%. The contribution to all employment across the globe was also north of 10%. More importantly, this is the most critical statement that I'm going to make. As per the figures of World Travel and Tourism Council, 25% of all new jobs created across the globe were directly or indirectly related to tourism.
Wow.
That's the starting point. Then this figure of 8% is also pre-pandemic, and this is India focused, right? But we all know in India, we have the organized and the unorganized sector. So the person who is, the rickshaw driver who takes you around the famous temple in the holy city of Banaras is not counted in that 8% figure, right? Is the person who does your rafting boat is not counted in that 8% figure. The person who is carrying your luggage while you're going hiking is not counted in that figure. The person who is, rowing the shikara on the Dal Lake in Kashmir is not counted in that figure. And this is all tourism related. So if you add the direct and indirect impact, the contribution in India, and also there are a lot of figures available that how much is the contribution of unorganized sector to GDP, right? So if you add all those figures, even in India, it crosses to more than 12%. And this is an established fact on different webinars. Our tourism ministry officials have also accepted. The challenge we have is very, very unfortunate. There is not one body in India that collects and is able to do the simulation on the statistics. So if we had that one source of information, and we are trying to work on that as a Hotel Association of India or as a tourism committee of Confederation of Indian Industries, then it would make a big difference to this industry, especially on the policy making front. Number two, in a poor country like India, and I was asked a lot of questions on communication, short-term and long-term, by Professor Consul. In India, the understanding of tourism is still as if it's discretionary. It's for rich people. And to put it very bluntly, you're very young compared to me, but my generation has grown up with, like I think you also, with Bollywood. And in my generation, all the movies we saw, the hotel was always owned by a smuggler or a bad guy. The villain of the movie was the owner of a hotel, and everything bad happened in a hotel itself, right? So there is the perception that if you try to do something for this industry, how it will be received by the common man on the road. You could even call it, I think I can see that you're from Indian origin. A lot of people in the north would call it the Sair Sapata industry, right? That this is only to just roam around and just have fun. This is not the case. This is an industry where people work 365 days a year. They work on Christmas, they work on New Year, they work on Diwali. And in all those sorts of things, it's a very tough business. It's a very low paid business, but it creates the maximum number of indirect jobs. So one hotel has to buy bread, vegetables, meat, milk from someone else, and someone else is making it, someone else is supplying it. So a lot of jobs get created. The multiplicator impact, let's say in the Western Hemisphere, of one job created in this industry equals to 6 to 9 jobs created in other sectors. So I think the industry is very fascinating. The industry is very important. And what I have tried in various, platforms that I get invited to, I genuinely believe from my heart and soul that tourism helps to build the culture of the nation. Tourism helps in the awareness. Tourism helps in building tolerance because you're more aware. When we say, especially in India, we say somebody is well-traveled. What is the meaning of well-traveled? That means he's more aware, that the person is more tolerant, the person is more perceptive, right? So education is not just what happens in a business school or a university or a degree, but it's also about awareness. And I think whatever we can do, we have done, and we will continue to do. It's not me who joined the company and did, Goa as a destination was created by Taj way back in early 70s. Kerala as a destination, as God's own country, was created by Taj. Andamans is now, as we speak, being created by us. And we as the first strong brand have gone into destinations recently like Darjeeling, etc., because no big brand of the significance and the standing that we have is there. So we will do what we can and hopefully relaunch our skilling initiatives to help support that growth, because COVID is not going to be there forever. Just like a boom is not there forever, the devastation that this industry has witnessed is also not going to last forever. So I remain very, very optimistic. And whatever I said, I am not blaming anyone. It is a very natural progression. See, when India became independent in 47, there were lots of needs and wants that needed to be addressed. Tourism could not have been a priority for the country, right? Then came an era of 90s when the economy started opening up and, then India shining and all those things happened. So when you become from a poor country to a growing country to a semi-mature economy, and as you move towards a mature economy and you start becoming like a permanent member of the G20 and the G7, and maybe the G7 gets expanded, all these things just happen, they come. Otherwise, if you try to push water uphill, you don't achieve much. But it's a natural progression. It will come. And who would have imagined that after the second wave, where people are expecting a third wave, as we speak, a lot of comments are being made, tourism can come later, please don't travel. We're coming from a place where we never traveled. When we traveled, we went to some relative's house and stayed there in the company, or their fathers or parents, the company paid for what you call the leave travel concession. So you got reimbursed and you stayed with some relatives. Today you stay in hotels. Now it is difficult to stop people from traveling. The moment it opens up, they say, we don't know when it might get closed, so let's go. So what you call revenge travel and all these things happening. So it's a very normal progression, and it shows how a country is transitioning from a growing country to a mature economy, from an economy with very less disposable income to a lot of people. I mean, even if it's only a couple of 100 million people who have high disposable income, 200 million is 200 million. Which country has that? Right. So that's where we stand, and I think we have always stood in the service of the nation, and we will continue to do that in our own way. We will support. I head the Hotel Association of India as the president. I'm the chairman of the tourism committee of CII. That takes a lot of my time. I contribute a lot and try to do whatever we can, and I'm not doing this as I'm doing this for the country, for a contribution from our group to these associations, and with the help of others. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of us who are, whether they are hoteliers or they are online travel agents or they are, inbound travel agents, outbound. There's a whole lot of thought leadership together as a team that is helping provide this kind of knowledge. But unfortunately, as I said, I wish we had credible data to support it. Our job would have become easier. But there is no other way, because if in order to get to a double-digit GDP growth that the country was aiming for, the contribution from this sector has to come. And the Honorable Prime Minister himself, in his speech, mentioned about this, see your own country, dekho apna desh. And it will come. And the recent changes to the government show, from having a status as only a Minister of State for Tourism, now we have a cabinet ranking minister and 2 state ministers. So it's like a 200% or 300%, 1 to 3 increase. So I'm very positive about the long-term future, but short-term, yes, it's a bit of a challenge.
Thank you. Thank you, Puneet. Thank you, Aniket. Let's quickly move on to Tashi for the last live question. Tashi, if you can come on camera, please. Tashi's is already in her MBA program. Yeah, Tashi,
Hi everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Puneet. Thank you for joining us and sharing your wealth of insights. Before I dive into my question, I would like to say that it was great to hear about the Taj for Families initiatives. I think pandemic has truly emphasized the importance for one for all and all for one. So thank you for that. My question is, from the various reports I've read, IHCL has been rightly lauded for its successful implementation of the Reset 2020 strategy. What are the factors that you think companies should consider while creating a transformational strategy?
Wow. No, I think I answered that before. I think whatever you do should be true to your philosophy, your culture, where you are coming from, where you're going, and it should be in line with that. But that does not mean it should not be business driven. So I think you need to marry both. Just values is also not good enough, because in order to live by those values, in order to do the service needed from those values, you also need to have the revenues and make the money. So I think finding the right balance and going forward, and that was our guiding force also, that we have to do whatever we can do. And we did not discuss the three other parts of reset. They're all related to spend optimization, effective asset management, and thrift and financially prudent. And we had to be very thrift. We had to be very frugal, and which we were in terms of spending money on ourselves. Or is it a very urgent or necessary campaign? Can this wait? Can certain renovations wait? So we did all of that, and also we were able to reduce through redeployment of a lot of our colleagues. And actually they got promoted, because not all businesses were suffering during COVID. Some were booming because they became the need of the hour, including the Zoom call business, right? So some of our people even got promoted and went to other companies, and without laying off, we were able to reduce our corporate overhead by almost 40%. So that was significant. So I think in whatever you do, keep those principles, culture, but have some business logic also.
Thank you, Puneet. Thank you, Tashi. Maybe I'll just take two questions from the chat box, and then we'll close. Puneet, if you have the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. There's a question from Warren Garner. How successfully has Taj adapted its strategies to overcome COVID restrictions in the different countries in which it operates, where each country has different lockdown rules and regulations?
Yeah, we have always done two things. One is follow the guidance given, whether in India or in UK or in Germany or in Maldives or wherever we are, in US or wherever we are present. But on top of that came what we call the Tajness as a commitment re-strengthened. We took it to the next level. So our standard on all the safety protocols is being a bit higher than the minimum required. And we think that's well invested money. This morning also, we had our ExCom meeting on a different issue, where we said certain expenses, we cannot look at those as expenses. They're an investment in the brand, and we have to protect. And I think that helped us. So the adaptation comes when you just changing as per the standard of the country. But typically, if your standard is higher than the basic minimum required, then it fits in well all over.
Question, if I could take that, is from Jehan Setna. You can hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How would Taj, going ahead, look ahead? Would it be a major push on franchise operations, brand retail, as to equipment used, linen, etc., raw materials used in F&B bulk kitchen supply, or just a major push forward in traditional hotel operations?
Neither nor. I think Jehan, is this the same Jehan who was ex-Oberoi's? I don't know.
Could be.
Could be. No, it's this. There is no right or wrong answer for this. We can't always stay traditional. You have to keep, changing with time. You have to adapt, embrace change. As they say, what is it? The famous saying, this is not from Kotter, but generally accepted principle, change is the only constant in our lives, and nothing changes if nothing changes. So I think we need to just embrace change, move on, and there is nothing, just traditional is not going to help. Just modern is not going to help. As I said, just marry the business case with the values. What is your values? Your values is your tradition, where you are coming from, and your business case, which keeps evolving, is the modern part of life. So you marry both.
Thank you, Puneet. So Ashley, I guess you'll agree with me. This has been Puneet Chatwal Masterclass 2 again, after the first one in June 2020. And we're really grateful, Puneet, for you to taking time and coming on for the second time. And since you love music so much, and Bollywood music, but if I could use an English song, Hotel California, the Taj Hotels, you can check in anytime you wish, but you wish you could never leave. That's been my experience. So Ashley, would you like to add something in conclusion?
Just a reminder to you and to Mr. Chatwal, session 3, I hope in the not too distant future. It would be a delight. But on another note, it was great today just to hear you, talk about reset. Some of that had just, I think, started prior to our last discussion, but the fullness of it was not yet revealed. And for anybody who's here that wants to read up on just some of these initiatives, I can tell you that the annual financial statements from Taj, from Indian Hotels Limited, I would recommend that you read them, not only for the management commentary, but for just so many of these initiatives are spoken about there. I can tell you, certainly in my classes in the future, both this semester and future classes, we'll be looking, I think, more deftly at the work that you've been doing, Puneet, you and your team. I think it's just world-class work, and so I commend you on it. And as I say, I'm going to be following up in my courses in the future to use you as one of the examples. So thank you for both opportunities.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Rontu. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who joined in. We are still 110 people on the webinar. So thanks so much, and till we